Hi, everybody. We're back, and I hope you all are having a great weekend. And we're going to be playing this on all the social media platforms. And hopefully you all have gotten the opportunity to meet Sheriff Hooper here in Nueces County. And don't forget that he's got the men and women behind the badge in the rural areas that control the ranch. Later this month, we're going to bring on Danny Bueno, a good friend of mine in Alice, Texas, about ranchers and about protecting their rights. So I'm glad that Sheriff Hooper's here. Welcome back.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We were talking about just the nuts and bolts of how you got elected, and your beautiful wife was a campaign manager. That's unusual, but it can serve. It sounds like House of Cards or that show where, you know, the political man and wife team work together. But who better to give you a mirror or a lens, right, when you run for office?
And my toughest critic next to me, you know, and she'll let me know, you know, if you've got spinach in your teeth, she's going to tell you before you talk to the public, right?
No comment, Priscilla. Yeah, she'll tell me. Yeah, that's true. They'll tell you the way it is, and you need to, because if you don't, I had a law professor say, "Show your warts," because if you don't, the jury's just going to keep looking at them all day long.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
But let's step aside about the politics and everything. And I know you did a wonderful 35-year career working with some pretty heavy hombres here in South Texas, offenders and alleged offenders, and also working with Chief Merkel and having to speak to the public and the media. That's like riding a bull and without even any tied down. I mean, you know.
But you know what? They have a job to do.
Yeah.
And so everybody's got a place in the process, right? And so I have the utmost respect for those men and women in that profession. You know,
it's true.
They've got a job to do, and it's a difficult job at that. And it was a learning experience working with the local media, the local paper, and then the local television stations, and finding out about the people who are out there trying to tell the story of what happens in this community every day. And so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we're expanding now on KRIS and KZTV, and we play on Saturdays and Sundays. So hopefully people staying in and warm or staying cool, because we'll play this for a while, or watching. But let's transition over. A lot of people don't know one thing about the jail or running a jail. Could you help us out?
So a county jail, you know, and is not a penitentiary, right? It's not where people go to do time. It's a transitional place. It's where people, they get booked in there when they've been arrested by local law enforcement, and 95% of the inmates in the Nueces County Jail are arrested by the Corpus Christi Police Department. Nueces County is that urban county with 95% of Nueces County's population and crime and everything else occurs here inside the city of Corpus Christi. And those are the majority of people, the majority inmates were arrested by the Corpus Christi Police Department, and they've been charged with a crime. And they went before a judge. And the judge says, yeah, the police officer had probable cause to arrest you, and it's going to cost you $10,000 to make sure you show up for court, or else you're going to have to stay in that county jail until your day in court.
And that's an example. That doesn't mean your bond's going to be $10,000.
No, absolutely not. But that's the process.
Yes, sir.
Just trying to give a snapshot of the process, right? And so the majority of people that we're housing are pre-trial. They're there waiting for their day in court. And given the court slowdown during the COVID and Senate Bill 6 that the governor signed that severely changed who's eligible for personal recognizance bonds.
Yes, sir.
The vast majority of the people that we're housing now, 1,262 this morning,
wow,
are violent offenders. The county jail used to be a place where you would do county time, right? DWI, shoplifting, these misdemeanor offenses, not all felony offenses. You could actually be sentenced to do county time, but we have very few inmates at this time that are there doing a misdemeanor sentence that was handed down by a judge or a jury. The vast majority of them are pre-trial felons, meaning that they're waiting their day in court, and like I said before, probably for a violent offense, an assault or aggravated assault or something with violence in it. And once they are adjudicated, either found innocent or convicted, then they go on. They're either released from the jail or they go on to the Texas Department of Corrections, and that is a penitentiary. That is a punitive environment.
Catching chain. Yeah,
exactly.
Let me ask you this. We've got an accountant who cooked the books, stole $200,000 worth of something. We're just an example. He's not more than 130 pounds soaking wet, 5'5", and he's going into that 1,200 some odd people that are primarily violent offenders. He's scared. It's just an example. And his family's going nuts. When is he going to get out? He got picked up on a Friday. Things take time.
Yeah.
So what do you do with somebody who is defenseless against pretty rough customers?
So one of the most important elements, and it happens every single day inside that jail, and that's the classification process. So when someone comes into the jail, of course they're assessed. They're assessed for their mental well-being, and their physical. And so we have a medical and mental health service contractor that the taxpayers pay $4 million a year for this company to handle the mental and the medical needs of the inmates.
Good.
And so they are assessed by the professionals immediately, and then they're also classified by the classification team inside that jail. And that's when we find out, are they someone who's likely to be victimized in a cell block, or are they somebody who's likely to be the aggressor in some type of interaction in the cell block? And so once we complete, and it's called a decision tree, it's like 17 steps to find out everything we can about this person, including their lifestyle, their family connections, their gang affiliation, everything about them. So we know that if they do have to spend significant time in one of our jail facilities, we put them with the right group of people. Gang affiliation is a big part of that. This 80% probably of our population are gang affiliated.
No way.
And we have to be very careful about putting certain gang members with other gang members, or else it's going to create a hazardous situation for not just for the inmates, but for the correctional officers that have to break up the fights.
Well, your predecessor, I asked him one time, I had a client that was like that, can't you do, and he said, Joe, I'm doing my best, but it's a jail, not a hotel.
Yeah. But that being said, if your loved one's in that jail, they deserve to be safe and secure. I mean, they're not in there to be assaulted. They're in there waiting on their day in court. And that's why we spend so much time and energy assuring that they're safe, whether it's in a holding cell or whether it's in one of the housing units.
You mentioned the other three prongs of what you handle, that it's the jail and then
courthouse security, the workload coming out of the district courts, whether it's criminal warrants or civil process, and then the patrol out in the county.
I want to thank the patrol out in the county. I know for a fact that when you go out to a house and it's a Saturday night at a ranch, the cavalry aren't coming quickly.
Right.
You're having to really put your life on the line. So they deserve as much recognition.
It's a big county, and response times can be problematic, can be challenging. But if somebody lives in an unincorporated area of the county and they call 911, they deserve a response, and we're the agency that responds to that 911 call.
You talked about the bond, and I can't believe we got a couple of minutes left. Gosh darn! But the Senate bill,
Senate Bill 6.
Many judges have told me, don't mention my name, Joe, but, they said, I feel like my hands are tied. I might get slapped on the wrist if I let somebody go on a personal recognizance bond, meaning on your own, where you don't have to put up a huge, big bond, and you're not that big of a flight risk, or am I going in the right direction?
Yeah, but you know what? The governor, okay, so Senate Bill 6, the origin of that was executive order, I believe it was GA 13, and that was created, there was a need for that during the pandemic, because many of these sanctuary cities, these big jails in densely populated, large metropolitan areas, Houston, Dallas, they were using that pandemic as an excuse to empty their jails.
Oh, gosh.
And so the governor, I saw what he had to do. He had to safeguard those communities from those sheriffs or those criminal justice systems in those cities that were releasing violent offenders without any accountability or without any bond. They were releasing violent offenders on PR bonds into the community of those larger cities. So he had to do that. He felt like he had to do that.
I didn't know the extent of that. The floor is yours, the last minute. What would you like to tell the public about the job you're doing?
Well, it's not the job I'm doing. It's the job that the women and the men who work for the Nueces County Sheriff's Office are doing, especially the correctional officers. They work 12-hour shifts. And they work in an environment that most of us really couldn't even fathom just how crazy it really is. I talked about the gang members. I talked about the mental health issues that a significant number of those inmates have. The majority of them are unhealthy. They have significant health problems because of lifestyle or addiction. And so the type of client that those correctional officers deal with every single day, most of us couldn't exist doing a job like that. I mean, they're amazing people to go to work every day and to go into that jail for 12 hours at a time. And yes, they are their brother's keeper for 12 hours at a time. They're making sure that those inmates are safe, secure, fed, medicated, whatever that inmate needs to exist during their stay at the Nueces County Jail. They're dependent on those women and the men. And I say women first because we're actually hiring more female correctional officers now than we are male correctional officers. And they have just total responsibility to make sure that your loved one, if your loved one gets sideways and ends up getting arrested and booked into the Nueces County Jail, those correctional officers are the lifeline for those inmates inside that Nueces County Jail, and they do an amazing job every day.
Well said. I know a true leader stands by his people, but also holds them accountable.
Absolutely.
And, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm wondering if you can come back after the holidays of New Year and see what we're going to do. And I want to thank our mutual friend Dan out there at KRIS. He put us together.
Good deal.
I spoke so highly of you, and we also have children of the same age and things, so it's been a pleasure. Yeah, gig 'em, all the way. And that was Sheriff Hooper here in Nueces County, telling it like it is, and we're going to have him back as a guest again. You'll be seeing him real soon, and you'll see him on the internet and on TV land. Thank you all, and God bless.